All right, let's dive into something that, let's be honest, probably hits close to home for a lot of us. We're going to talk about work, stress, and that never ending search for balance in today's world. It's complicated, it can be frustrating, so let's try to unpack what's really going on.
So, how many times have you heard yourself say, I'm just so stressed out? Or maybe you're worried about hitting that wall, burnout. These aren't just trendy phrases anymore. For millions of people, they are the reality of the daily grind. But before we can even begin to tackle it, we got to get on the same page about what stress actually is.
At its core, stress is just our body's reaction to pressure. It's like this ancient built-in alarm system. The only difference is it's not a saber-toothed tiger setting it off anymore. No, now it's a looming deadline or an inbox that just will not stop growing. And for so many of us, the place that alarm is ringing loudest is, you guessed it, at work. Okay, so let's get specific. Let's really break down this problem of stress, but specifically within the four walls of the workplace or, the four walls of your home office. Because really, understanding what's causing it is the only way we can start to figure out a solution. Before you can fix a problem, you need to know the language to even talk about it, right? So think of it like this. A stress factor, that's the thing causing the problem. A symptom is how it makes you feel, tired, irritable, you name it. The toll is the long-term damage it does. And management, well, that's our toolkit for fighting back. When we know these words, we can go from just this vague feeling of being stressed to actually pinpointing what's wrong and what we can do about it.
So let's zoom in on those stress factors. What are the actual things at work that are cranking up the pressure? Well, it turns out the research pretty consistently points to 6 major culprits.
Now, as I run through this list, just notice how many of these feel familiar. I'm willing to bet you've run into one or two of these yourself. Let's kick things off with the big one. First up, the all-time classic, the heavy workload. And look, this isn't just about being busy. This is that gut-wrenching feeling of having a mountain of work and a clock that's ticking way too fast. It turns your whole day into a race where the finish line just keeps moving further away. You feel like no matter how hard you paddle, you can never, ever catch up. And then there's office politics. This is the kind of stress that doesn't even come from the work itself, but from all the complicated, messy human stuff around it. When you have to spend half your brain power navigating hidden agendas and turf wars instead of just doing your job, the workplace can start to feel like a total minefield.
Here's another huge one, role ambiguity. This is that quiet, creeping anxiety that comes from not being totally sure what you're even supposed to be doing. If nobody clearly defines what success looks like for you, you're just left guessing. And that uncertainty, wondering if you're hitting the mark or totally failing, that is a perfect recipe for stress.
A lack of management support. This can be a real killer. It's that feeling of being thrown into the deep end, but with no life raft. You don't have the guidance, you don't have the tools, you don't have the resources you need to actually succeed. Being left to fend for yourself like that, it's not just stressful, it's completely demoralizing.
This one taps into something really fundamental in all of us. We need to feel like our work matters. An effort-reward imbalance is when you are pouring everything you have into your job, your time, your energy, your creativity, but you get almost nothing back in terms of recognition or, hey, even fair pay. After a while, that just makes you throw your hands up and ask, seriously, why am I even bothering?
And finally, number 6, the homework imbalance. This happens when your job becomes this giant black hole that sucks up all your time and energy, leaving absolutely nothing for your family, your hobbies, for you. And this factor is the perfect bridge to our next big topic. Because in response to all of this stress we've just talked about, something really interesting has started to happen. We're seeing this massive cultural shift. People are starting to say, you know what? I'm not willing to sacrifice my entire life for my job anymore. They're on a quest for something better, a higher quality of life. And this shift has really created 2 different ways of thinking. On one side, you have the traditional workaholic, the person whose entire identity is wrapped up in their job. But on the other side, you have this new mindset, the quality of lifer. This is the person who's actively looking for balance, maybe by downshifting their career or using things like remote work to get back that precious time for the things that really matter. And hey, at first glance, the numbers for remote work make it seem like the perfect answer, right? A whopping 95% of remote workers say they have a better work-life balance. I mean, that's a huge number. That's more dinners with the family, less time staring at taillights in traffic. It sounds like the magic bullet, doesn't it? And the good news just keeps coming. 82% say they feel more independent, more in control of their own work. That's a direct antidote to some of that office stress we were just talking about. The freedom to manage your own time. It sounds like a total win-win. But this is where the story gets a little more complicated. Because for all of its incredible benefits, this new way of working has introduced something really fascinating and, frankly, really challenging. It's a paradox. The very thing that was supposed to solve all our problems, well, it created a whole new set of them. So we have to ask the question, what's the trade-off? What's the hidden price we're paying for ditching the commute and the office? Well, it turns out those same studies that gave us all those amazing positive numbers also uncovered some pretty serious downsides. Okay, here's the first big one. A staggering 73% of people working from home feel like there is no boundary at all between their work life and their personal life. When your office is your living room, the workday just never ends. You're answering emails during dinner, you're thinking about that big project right before you go to sleep. It becomes almost impossible to ever truly switch off. And there's a real human cost too. More than half, 57%, report feeling lonely and isolated. Think about what we lose when we work remotely. Those quick chats by the coffee machine, the shared inside jokes, just the simple energy of being around other people. Turns out that social fabric is a really powerful defense against stress. So what this all reveals is the great paradox of modern work. It feels like we've just swapped one set of problems for another. We might have gotten rid of the office politics and the micromanaging boss, but in their place, we've inherited these blurred boundaries and, for many, a real sense of isolation. Which really, it leaves us with one final, pretty tough question. We're all chasing this idea of a perfect balance. But what if it's just a myth? What if the goal isn't to find some perfect static state of equilibrium, but instead to get better at the constant, messy, dynamic juggling act between all the different parts of our lives? Now that is definitely something to think about.